It is very quiet out there. I've been out walking already. It's 6 o'clock in the morning right now. Been out walking from 20 past 4, and it is very quiet. It is quite clearly bank holiday. So we're going to be talking about building a much more positive inner voice, because obviously I think that for a lot of people, their inner voice almost becomes their actions. So we're trying to change that. Sorry, I'm just trying to sort my mic out. We're trying to change that. So we're trying to make sure that we understand as a man what our inner voice is telling us, okay, and how we can make it a much more positive experience within the life journey, right? Because I think too many guys getting caught up in living their inner voice, and then their inner voice is not being very positive. So we're going to go through this scenario, and we're going to finish with 3 ways that we can change that. Okay, so let's get into it. Welcome to the Rise to Thrive show. I'm your host, James Baldwin. If you are coming through, then please do let me know that you're watching back. Okay, it's important. Okay, so becoming your inner voice. So there are really, in theory, for me, 2 different types of inner voices. The inner voice that corrupts you, holds you back, it tells you negative things, tells you can't do something, thrives on low self-belief. And then there is the inner voice inside of you that says, get up, let's get after it, let's go for it. It doesn't matter what's going on. Break down the wall, be the rhino that charges, be the lion. Let's get the fucking work. Do you know what I mean? So those 2, and obviously the second one is what we're trying to achieve. Now, when you're trying to achieve a life mission, this is the most important one that we want, because that's the thing that energizes us and gets us to the place we want to go. So why do we have such low self-belief? Okay, why do we have such low self-belief of ourselves? And in theory, that is the thing that causes the low impact chatter, shall we call it? Because it is low impact, right? It's negative chatter. It's just self-destructive almost, which you could go on to say is possibly the cause of a lot of self-sabotage. So how do we deal with that self-belief? Okay, how do we have it? And I think it's a cycle. So you think about a cycle that goes round and round and round and round. It's the same cause and triggers. So quite often there will be lots of reasons that we have so low self-belief, low self-worth. We could have low self-worth from our childhood, from not being told, or not being loved enough, not being nurtured enough. We could have low self-belief because of comparisons and comparing ourselves to other people. We compare our success to other people's success, and we think that we fall short, so we believe that we're not good enough. I think whether there are experiences that you've gone through in your past life that have created an inner voice that has just crippled you in terms of self-belief. I often think that, like, watching porn as well is a real trigger to having low self-belief, and all of these contributing factors will cycle around your brain, and then in amongst, every now and then you'll come up for air where you'll feel quite confident, and then something will happen and you'll go back to that low inner voice, and your actions and you become the byproduct of that inner voice that is very low and negative and destructive. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example here. So for me, quite often I will go through a cycle of low self-belief off the back of the form of my inner critic, okay, my inner self that constantly says you're not good enough, that constantly says it's all going to come to a head, that it's all going to end, that you're not good enough to be able to show up. And a lot of the time that happens right across the board. I constantly think I'm not good enough for my wife, which is frustrating on all parts. I constantly think that my business is going to crumble. I often think that I'm going to end up lonely and old in a bedsit when I'm older. And that's that inner voice constantly trying to nurture and breed itself. And there was, when I first started my first business, after about 2 years of running it, there was constant self-doubt. And that's when I started to notice it most, when I was in that when I was in that full steam of like trying to build a business, of then bringing in a new baby into the world, of constantly challenging myself, of constantly beat myself up. And it was becoming really frustrating. It gets to the point where it's so fucking frustrating that you constantly keep beating yourself up, that you constantly keep talking shit inside of your inside of your brain, that becomes so exhausting of performing to the negative, destructive inner voice, constantly self-sabotaging. And you almost get to the point like I did when you go, I'm not going to tolerate it anymore, because I think our inner voice will only survive and live as long as we keep tolerating it. So if you keep tolerating a negative inner chat and it's destructive, then what will end up happening is that you'll tolerate that lifestyle that comes with it. Okay. So if you're happy with that average lifestyle, if you're happy with low self-belief, low self-worth, low self-esteem, and you want to keep living your life, then you've just got to keep doing what you're doing. But I'm pretty sure that's not what you want to do, right? So I've got three things or three ways that we can change it. And I had to change it because it was making my life a misery. It was making other people's life a misery. And it was making the whole process and the game of life miserable. And I don't want it to be. I've got another 50 years. I'm not going to spend the next 50 years being dictated by my inner chat. I want to be able to control that inner chat. And I think that's the most important part. You know, a lot of this stems from my stepdad being an emotional bully over 15 years. And that often like is the root cause of that inner chatter. So the three things, all right. So the first thing that I've come to learn is surround yourself with like-minded people that are driven, that are ambitious, that are um, that want to achieve another level in life, in business, in personal states. And I found that when you start surrounding yourself with those type of people, they lift you, they change because you're around them a lot. You hear the way that they talk, you hear about their ambitions, you hear about their drive, their successes, how they got up from failures. And that slowly seeps into the cycle of what was once a negative in a chat. And it starts feeding it with positive chat because you're around like-minded people, right? You're around people that are ambitious. You're around people that lift you. You're around people that get you going. And that is one of the ways that we stop the negative inner chat. And when you're around that, and when you're around the positive people, it has the same effect as what being around negative people does, right? If you're around negative people, it makes you negative. When you're around positive people, it uplifts you and it makes you positive about it, right? So the first way that we change that inner voice that is destructive and negative is to be around people that are positive and driven like you, and having that mentor so that we fill it with positive inner chat. Makes sense? It's like, I can do this. This is what we are going to achieve. This is how we are going to do it. High emotional states. Okay. Number two is that we build the positive voice from the morning. So for me, whenever we wake up, and I know that the majority of men out there, maybe 95% of men will wake up in a negative state. They will wake up with this negative inner bitch inside of them telling them that they can't do it, because that's the strength of the chimp, right? Inside of your head. You can't do it. Life is shit. You're going through this. And then you'll just manifest that. Whereas we could get up and you could be up an hour and a half earlier than you normally would, or an hour up earlier than you would, or half an hour, and you get out and you get out in the rain, or you get out on the walk and you start thinking positively, start thinking and reflecting about your life. You start putting perspective on all of the fire in your life. You start finding gratitude in life. And what we're doing is changing the inner voice inside of our head. So instead of it being negative, we start to train it to be more positive. And when we go for that walk, what we do is simmer down all of the fire that is around, that is causing a lot of the negative thoughts, the low self-beliefs, the low culture that you have inside of your brain, and you're starting to rewire it. And that's simply by having a set of structures and routines, and that allows you in the longer run to build a stronger mind. Okay. And number three is every day catch the negative thoughts. So when you're thinking to yourself, oh God, this is going to be a nightmare, this is going to be really shit, or this is going to turn out really bad, you have to catch it. So as soon as you start hearing that inner voice, that's when you have to go, no, it's not. And you have to almost have this like little battle inside of your head. And if you're going to win at your mission, if you're going to win at the mission of life, and you're going to win overall, and you're going to win in the long term, you've got to change the mentality. You will not achieve your mission if your inner voice is constantly critiquing and pulling you down. Okay, it's like trying to tread water in the sea with with a 16 kilogram kettlebell attached to your foot. You're going to sink. You've got to be able to unlock that bind and be able to do your work, and then get up onto the wave and surf the wave and achieve the mission. But unless we start with this, and controlling our inner voice immediately, so that it's more driven, it's more optimistic, it's more hopeful, it's more focused than destructive, we'll never achieve those missions. Okay, does that make sense? I hope so. And we're going to be doing a lot more of this. And today I am going through the first cycle of the book, okay, at 1 o'clock today on Facebook and live, doing 12 episodes of deep insights and implementations on this book to extract it. And for the first time in 2 years, we're going back to doing a 5-day challenge to help guys at the start of June. So there is lots to be able to unpack in terms of being in the right frame of mind, self-mastering yourself to achieve your mission, right? Ultimately bringing you much more happiness, finding purpose, creating direction, and embracing life. All right, guys, listen, I hope this has helped. I'd love your thoughts back on it. Let me know what you think.